A degree from Sydney University is an achievement. You've worked very hard for it. The staff here are partly to congratulate you for that. Well done. And I'd also just like to inform you that you were lucky because the next graduation ceremony at 11:30 is being used by the university management to confer an honorary degree on the former Prime Minister John Howard. John Howard, who participated in the invasion of Iraq, who lent his full support and credibility to it. John Howard, who deceived Australians over the Tampa, over children overboard, who militarised our borders, who escalated racism and tension and inequity in this country. And the staff from the university here are to say that this is not happening in our name. We believe that what's spoiling everyone's day is the university's choice to politicise the next graduation ceremony. So I'd just like to, again, congratulate students and ask you, if you like, to hang around with us and to say that we stand for peace, we stand for anti-racism, we stand for social justice, and we refuse to allow the university's ideals of rationality, evidence-based inquiry, and those kinds of things to be put to the service to validate a war criminal and a racist. Thank you very much.
Howard Light! Thousands die! Howard Light! Thousands die! Howard Light! Thousands die!
We're here today because Sydney University thinks that it is acceptable to honour and give a doctorate to John Howard, a war criminal responsible for taking Australian troops into the war in Iraq, responsible for the murder of millions of people across the Middle East, responsible for Australia's disgusting refugee policy, and disgusting for the continued and ongoing persecution of Indigenous people, and in particular the Northern Territory intervention. So with that in mind, I'd like to start with reminding ourselves that we're meeting today on stolen Aboriginal lands, and particularly to remind John Howard that we're meeting today on stolen Aboriginal land. This is the land of the Gadigal people. It was stolen, sovereignty was never ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Always was, always will be Aboriginal land! Always was, always will be Aboriginal land! Always was, always will be Aboriginal land! Always was, always will be Aboriginal land!
Always was, always will be
Aboriginal land!
Not only did John Howard send troops into Iraq and into Afghanistan to invade and occupy the Middle East and murder millions of people across the Middle East, but he also invaded and occupied the lands of Aboriginal people in the Northern Territory. Shame.
Shame!
Racist, sexist, anti-queer.
Howard is not welcome here!
Racist, sexist, anti-queer.
Howard is not welcome here! Racist, sexist, anti-queer!
Howard is not welcome here.
Racist.
And this is not really surprising, given the stance of Sydney University over its own students, with Michael Spence this year attempting to shut down colleges across the campus, including the Sydney College of the Arts. This is not surprising, given Michael Spence's own anti-union stance and attacks on the NTU here on campus, particularly a couple of years ago when he tried to kick the union off campus. It's not surprising they want to honour somebody like John Howard, who attempted to destroy the trade union movement with WorkChoices, who attacked the Maritime Union of Australia on the waterfronts in the late 90s. It's good to see Maritime Union of Australia flags here today, and I hope we give John Howard chills down his spine when he comes in and sees the strength of students and staff standing together, continuing their opposition to his disgusting policies. Would anyone from the Maritime Union like to come up and say a few words?
Here to stay! MUA! Here to stay! MUA! Here to stay!
Great to be here. I just heard one young lass going past, and she said, I worked damn hard for what I got here for graduation. Why should he get one for nothing? Not only that, one for nothing, what he's done to this country, what he's attempted to do to the trade union movement, the MUA in particular, in the 1998 dispute, is despicable. And all what he did to the people on the Tampa, the wonderful refugees he wouldn't let into this country. He's done that many bad things, and this university is politicising graduation day here at the wonderful University of Sydney. It should never happen, and we should never ever support people like John Howard ever and ever. Amen. Thank you.
John Howard, war criminal! John Howard!
War criminal!
John Howard!
War criminal!
John Howard!
War criminal!
John Howard!
War criminal!
John Howard!
War criminal!
John Howard!
War criminal!
This year, the Chilcot report came out in the UK, which revealed what the millions of people who stood on the side of Middle Eastern people as their countries were invaded and bombed by the likes of Blair, by the likes of Howard, and by the likes of Bush. It revealed what we always knew, that John Howard, Tony Blair, and Bush are all war criminals. Sydney University would like to cover this up, but history will not forget the millions that died across the Middle East. History will not forget the chemical weapons used on Fallujah. History will not forget the bombs over Baghdad. History will not forget the lies that Howard told to send Australia into the war in Iraq of weapons of mass destruction. History will not forget the lies that Howard told about the Tampa boat and the refugees on it. John Howard will go down in history as a war criminal, a racist, and a union basher. Is Howard being granted this doctorate?
Thanks, Chloe. I just wanted to congratulate everybody for being here. I've obviously briefly spoken already, but first perhaps I could just make a couple of organisational points. I know many of us who are on staff here will be members of the National Tertiary Education Union, which is supporting this strike, this protest. I have about 8 NTEU flags down here. If people who are members could come and get them and proudly wave them, as is already happening at the back, I think that would be very good. Thank you, Chris. I also have a whole stack of leaflets which we're asking people to distribute to students who are going into the graduation, calling on them to raise signs when Howard starts speaking, saying things like, war criminals not welcome on campus. So if anyone would like to take some of these off me and see if they can put them in the hands of any ambient students, you'll recognise them because they've got their academic regalia on. Please do so. It'd be good if we can get as many people holding those signs as possible. And perhaps I'd just also like to invite those staff members here who have signed the petition to think about whether they might like to come up to the microphone and talk about why they're here. This protest is a protest of everyone. We all have, I think, different political styles, different political beliefs, but what unites us is the fact that we think that it's completely unacceptable that the University of Sydney should be honouring John Howard. The University of Sydney is supposed to be an institution which is committed to rationality, which is committed to the exercise of evidence-based judgment, and which does not support the headlong rush into war that we saw Australia being driven into by Howard in 2003, when, as an uncritical lackey of George Bush, he plunged the Middle East into even greater chaos and confusion. And of course, the world, the Middle East in particular, is still reaping those consequences today. And I just wanted to say something briefly, with your permission, about what I think the difference is between the exercise of reason, which is what the university should stand for, and the exercise of brute ignorant power, which is what Howard's term in office was all about. It's frequent, I think. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. I think it's become a cliche, I think, to talk about how knowledge and power are essentially the same thing. And I myself often say things like that. It's clear, isn't it, that the kinds of power that academic research, that reasoned analysis give you are a real kind of power, and that reason itself is a kind of power. But I think on an occasion like this, we have the opportunity to see very starkly what the difference is between reason-based, empirical, knowledge-based power and the kind of brutal ignorance that fuels federal politics. Because we here at this university, we stand for evidence. We stand for the reasoned deliberation and consideration of delicate political issues. We don't jump to conclusions, we assess the evidence and we make a reasoned judgment. We don't just do what the most powerful tell us, we try to reach an independent, rational decision which is defensible before the tribunal of reason. And I think that we can see today the extent to which that very ideal has been consistently betrayed by the management of our university. I don't want to speak so much today about Howard. I think we all know why we're here and what our quarrel is with him. What I'd like to draw attention to more specifically is the way that the barbarians have invaded and taken over this fortress. It's not a surprise, I don't think, or it's not an accident that those crenellations that we can see over the main quad building are made for people with arrows to pelt people trying to enter them. They're medieval fortifications. And I think we've not seen recently, except under this Vice-Chancellor and this Chancellor, such a perfect realisation of that fortress metaphor. The Vice-Chancellor and the Chancellor are manifestly people whose political agenda is to enclose the emancipatory possibilities of knowledge and rationality within the confines of privilege. We saw that when Michael Spence full-bloodedly supported fee deregulation. We see it in Belinda Hutchinson's, the Chancellor's very close connections with the Liberal Party, a party which we know has no other agenda than to favour the ruling classes of this country at the detriment of everyone else. And the kind of craven lackeying that we see being expressed towards political power today, I think is a perfect example of that. Of course, the rationale for what's happening today, of course the rationale is that it occurred to someone that the Liberal National Party is in government. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to anoint a Liberal national figurehead. And I think that that's probably as far as any reflection or deliberation went. The people who hold the majority on the University Senate are so entitled, they're so out of touch, that was the only justification, I think, that was necessary to pursue and agree to confer this doctorate on Howard, a decision which I can tell you was made against the protestations of the elected members of Senate, which organisations like the NTEU campaigned to get on the Senate. Those members, those elected members, people like Dr. Katrina Menzies-Pike, the editor of the Sydney Review of Books and an alumnus fellow on Senate, told the university that they could expect exactly this kind of protest and controversy, and she was perfectly right. But the entitlement of upper management and of the bankers and gaming executives who actually run this place was such that that information, that thing that should be just a completely self-evident conclusion, was of no value to them. That's exactly the contempt that they show to the opinions of staff and their representatives, of the community and their representatives. That's why we have Howard today here. So we're here, I think, not only to denounce a war criminal and a racist, but also to denounce the university management, which is so out of touch that it is unable to heed the manifest will and disapproval of its staff. I think it tells us something that we have not heard a single peep from Michael Spence, or from Belinda Hutchinson, or from Barbara Kane, the acting dean of the arts faculty, in the face of the very public and very vocal opposition of staff members at this university. I'm not going to speak more, except to say we are here, I think, to denounce a war criminal, someone responsible for at least 25,000 deaths, or someone jointly responsible for a Western invasion of the Middle East that caused at least 25,000 deaths in its first two years alone, and something like 150,000 in the first 9 years. That is 150,000 lives. 150,000 lives wasted on a lie. Wasted on brutal imperialist aggression and violence on a lie. This is somebody who also sent the army in to the Northern Territory. This was Howard's main policy achievement in government. Faced with a complex problem, send the army in. That's a disgrace. We're here to say that we do not stand for racists and war criminals being feted by the university, and I'd just like to congratulate everybody for turning up here today. Maybe I'll invite some other staff member perhaps. Is there some other staff member who would like now to come up and say why they're here? Thank you, Chris. This is Chris Hartney from the Department of Religious Studies, who's also, like me, a branch committee member of the NTEU.
I teach religion and violence. I teach genocide studies. As you know, there was no genocide of Indigenous Australians. We deny it. It didn't happen. According to the man who's going to get his honorary doctorate today, there was no systematic genocide of Indigenous people. It didn't happen. Can I tell you, one of the 10 stages of genocide development is stage 10, denial. We are today in denial, and we're awarding the great voice of denial. And that is not academic. That is not something that this university should be here on. If this is stolen land, don't we double the crime by also denying the constant and ongoing campaign that academics as brilliant as Professor Collitatz down in Victoria recognised was a systematic and ongoing campaign of genocide against our Indigenous people by neglect, by taking their children, by putting them on reserves, by taking them away from land. It was ongoing. It's taken place ever since 1789, and as a consequence of that, we should be doubly ashamed at this institution that we are rewarding a genocide denier, and anybody who supports this man coming on campus today is supporting a genocide denier and is denying the sheer absolute facts of the horror of Australian history.
Thank you, Chris. I'd now like to introduce Emeritus Professor Frank Stilwell from the Department of Political Economy. I think Frank needs little introduction from people here. Let's just say that for many decades now, he's been a leading light of contestation on this campus, and it's a privilege that he's speaking here today. Thanks, Frank.
I've been at the University of Sydney a long time. I've taught here for over 45 years, which is about a quarter of the time that the University of Sydney has been in existence. I feel a little embarrassed about that, but I have to say that I'm very proud of my long association with the University of Sydney. This is a great institution of research and learning. It provides a bridge into public concerns. It stands for reason, for the pursuit of knowledge, and importantly, the pursuit of truth. The pursuit of truth. Lying or misleading people is not consistent with the university evidence and that great tradition for which this university stands. So when you get episodes like the children overboard experience, when you get, and think back to the tamper, the cynical fueling of racism, when you think about the deceits that led to the participation in the war on Iraq, you have to feel a sense of shame. Shame, Howard, shame. This has got nothing to do with the University of Sydney. Students who get their degrees from this university do so in the great tradition of the pursuit of knowledge, education, truth and scholarship. This has got nothing to do with giving an award to a person of John Howard's ill repute. I oppose this with everything I stand for, and I'm delighted to see so many other people sharing that view.
I think it's worth saying that John Howard is one of the architects of modern day institutionalised Australian racism. And a poll came out just the other day, a pretty terrifying poll, which has revealed that something like 48 or 49% of Australians support a ban on Muslim migration. an all-out ban on Muslim migration. And I think it's really clear that it's people like Howard who committed himself and Australia to the so-called war on terror. It's people like Howard, who's one of the main architects of our disgusting, torturous refugee policy that have created a situation today where we have that kind of widespread racism in Australia. So in that light, I wanted to start off a chant. Muslims are welcome!
Muslims are welcome! Howard is boss!
Gentlemen, I probably don't share a lot in common with the values of my more socialist colleagues over here. But why I'm here is because in 1995 I graduated Bachelor of Science in this great hall here. You all remember what the climate was like in 1995 for people who looked like me? And that was because there was a certain politician who unfortunately has done a souffle and come back and risen again, and there was no leadership from our government and our Prime Minister at the time. I'm here because I personally suffered from that. I suffered in 1984 as a 10-year-old coming to this campus with my father, who was an academic here, and then getting the train home and riding my bicycle home through the suburbs when a certain leader of the opposition said there were too many Asians in Australia. And it happened again in 1995 when I was a graduate of this university. I also remember in the late 90s the anti-intellectualism deciding that we didn't need medical trials of prescription opiates in the ACT because we already knew the answer what was good for patients. A politician knew the answer what was good for patients, not doctors or scientists. So I'm here to say that as a current research student at this university and a faculty member and an alumnus, I don't think that awarding a doctorate to a man like that is in keeping with the values that I want to espouse for my alma mater, for the current institution I study at, where I'm trying to get a degree, and for the institution at which I teach.
Thank you very much. I think we might now, is that okay, Beth? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, please.
G'day, my name's Kevin Torrey, Trade Union Committee for Aboriginal Rights. John Howard, when he was Prime Minister, was an absolute disgrace. An absolute disgrace. He brought on the Northern Territory intervention. He opposed land rights. And under him, Aboriginal people were very much disadvantaged. I just have to remind people, Aboriginal people don't come to the economic table of this country as paupers. You're doing very well out of our stolen resources and our land. So give us a fair go too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to call on Beth Yap. Beth is a very valued colleague of mine in the English department. Beth teaches creative writing, and as well as being an academic here, she's a very distinguished novelist and artist, and I think perhaps that brings out the fact that one of the many things that Howard and his government were opposed to was the exercise of creative expression in the community. And what is creative expression if not the kind of protest that we're seeing here today? So thank you, Beth.
Hi everyone. I'm just going to talk very, very briefly, not so much about the arts, because we know the arts is being decimated at the moment. But I just wanted to give a personal perspective, because I was standing over there and I was looking at that sign, "We are the Howard generation." And I thought, we really have seen several generations come up under Howard. I was there in the late 90s. I mean, I was here all through the Howard years, up until 1999. And under his watch, we saw the rise of Pauline Hanson. We're seeing her here again. I have to say that in 1999, I left Australia because I couldn't take it anymore. As a writer and an Asian person, these are the things that happened to me, okay, under Howard's watch. People spat at me in the street. Young kids near my house in the Blue Mountains threw stones at me as I was walking to the train station. Okay. A girl in a supermarket threw my change at me and said, "Go home." Okay, so almost every day of those years, I felt under attack. And I felt like I really was not welcome here. No matter what I did or what I said, no matter what I published, I still had people saying to me, "Oh, you're so welcome here, you speak such good English." So no matter the good English that I spoke, I was not welcome here. And what I think is happening today is that this university is saying to everyone, we're okay with this. We're okay with letting racist behavior perpetuate and expand.
Shame.
And I think, it's really, really important, for us to say congratulations to these students, many of whom are Asian students and are Muslim students. I'm not a target anymore, so I can relax now. It's not me, okay? It's just shifted somewhere else. But I think we need to say congratulations to the students. Many of you are, part of these groups that are being attacked. And we need to stand up and say, this is not okay. It's not okay to honor the generations that have come up under Howard and think this is okay.
Thank you, Beth. I wonder whether there's anybody here from the Department of Arabic Language and Cultures who might like to say something about Howard's role in the Middle East, which I think is one of the things that really brings it. While they're thinking about it, perhaps I might, if this is okay with... Oh, okay, Lucia, thank you. Let's welcome Lucia Sorbera from Arabic Language and Culture.
Okay, I'm not very good at speaking. Actually, I'm here with all my colleagues from the Department of Arabic Language and Cultures. And we are very proud to be here because we are continuing what we are actually doing in our classes regularly. In the Department of Arabic Language and Cultures, we teach about contemporary Iraqi history. We teach to our students what contemporary Arab cultural productions are and the resilience of Arab people against the violence of war and invasion. And the invasion of Iraq of 2003 is at the roots of all the problems that the Middle East is facing today. We are mourning Aleppo, we are mourning Baghdad, we are mourning every single soul which is killed in the Arab world today. And we need a new generation of politicians that is capable to face this horror and to support the brave and resilient civil society in the Arab world and in the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. I wonder whether in a moment there's a student who might like to speak, a student from the crowd. In a moment I'm going to call Mark Goodcamp from the Refugee Action Coalition. Mark is a friend, a comrade and a colleague of mine who I have the utmost respect for. I think one of the things that we have a tendency to do in universities is think that we have a monopoly on intelligence and rationality and knowledge. And anybody who has spent even 5 minutes mining Mark's extraordinary knowledge of politics and extraordinary breadth of engagement with the way that the world actually works will soon see what a hollow idea that is. And I think the kind of arrogance that the Senate showed in deciding to confer this degree on Iraq in the belief that they were conferring an academic mantra, an academic degree, which they didn't need to justify, is completely, I think, undermined and destroyed by people of Mark's knowledge and intelligence and reason and ability to act and preparedness to act. So please welcome Mark Goodcamp, who's going to speak on behalf of the Refugee Action Coalition.
Thanks, Nick, and I think it's a credit to you personally as well as the other academics and students who have managed to pull together this crowd at such short notice and put this whole question on the agenda and contested what the university is doing and made it into not only the Guardian and the Sydney Morning Herald, but also the Telegraph could not ignore. They tried to belittle the action that's being taken today, but I think it speaks volumes that we have like 4 or 5 lackeys, cronies of John Howard. The future Howards, the future wannabe imperialists and racists. But look at their numbers. Look how absolutely pathetic they are. So I again want to congratulate those students who are graduating today, and I do hope that some of them do stand up and hold signs or curse in the ear of John Howard as they go up to receive their certificate. I know a friend of many of us here yesterday presented the university with a letter when she graduated with her PhD yesterday, Liz Humphreys. So, you know, that kind of thing on the inside is also very, very important. But I guess I was a student here. I started here in 1988 as an undergrad student, and at that time, as our friend who's now a medical researcher said, it was John Howard who had made a name for himself in echoing the likes of Geoffrey Blaney, that historian, that favourite historian of John Howard, who said that Australia was over-Asianised and had too many Asian people. And I do remember around that time that John Howard made an appearance on the campus, and he was met with hundreds and hundreds of students and academics to say no to racism on that campus. And we stand in the fine tradition of what happened in the 1980s when John Howard came onto this campus. I think more than any mainstream politician from the two political parties, John Howard legitimised Pauline Hanson. A, because he agreed with the kind of things she was saying in 1996 when she came into power, but also every time someone was critical of Hanson when she came in the first time, it was John Howard at the forefront of defending her right to speech, of saying she had a legitimate role to play in the parliament, and all those things. So I think there was a seamless connection between that far-right racism that unfortunately has made a resurgence in this country and the role that John Howard played. And you can see it again with the likes of Michaela Cash hugging Pauline Hanson in the parliament. You can see it every time that Malcolm Turnbull is now going to bow before Hanson in order to get her vote, to get stuff through the Senate, that these same cronies, the next generation of Liberal leadership, are doing exactly what John Howard did in legitimising this racist, Islamophobic force that Pauline Hanson represents. And that's the legacy that John Howard, in poisoning the political culture of Australia for so many years, is absolutely responsible for. And that's another aspect of why it's so important that we are here gathered today, regardless of what issue we are engaged with. As Nick said, he and I work strongly together, and there are other people here in the crowd who are either current members of the Refugee Action Coalition or have been in our 15 years of existence. We came together, before the Tampa. It was during John Howard's period of time that we did come together and started this campaign, and we're still, obviously campaigning today. But I think it's very important to say that no matter what John Howard did, sending the SAS onto the Tampa, starting the first Pacific solution, lying about the children overboard, taking glee in the fact that boats sank like the Civex, where 353 people drowned. This is John Howard's legacy. This is what John Howard, represents. But I think it's important to say that no matter how much he had the mainstream media on his side, no matter how much, the elites of this country sucked up to what he was doing, that the 73% of people who supported him when he sent the SAS onto the Tampa over the course of a couple of years, due to the mass campaigning of whether it was students or academics or teachers or doctors or artists or whatever, turned that around so that it was no longer politically advantageous for John Howard to kick refugees when 2007 came along. And unfortunately, I think it's a task that we do have today. All these people who fawn about John Howard was right, he was right to turn the boats back in 2001. It is absolute crap. It is absolute crap. We know the real reason. The people were sent back to Indonesia and lived in limbo, those boats that he sent back. We know now that there are record numbers of refugees trying to seek asylum, trying to find a safe place. It is not the result of John Howard's policies. It is the fact that there is ongoing conflict, often created by the Western governments that is seeing record numbers of refugees trying to seek asylum. And we have to destroy that legacy of Howard. Every time someone says John Howard played this remarkable role, we have to stand up and say no. And today is all part of that. So again, congratulations to everyone for coming along today.
Thanks a lot, Mark. We're about to hear from George, who's a recent PhD graduate in fine arts and art history and theory. But just before we do that, I just wanted to say that the ceremony is almost scheduled to begin. The university management thought that they would be able to get away with sneaking this graduation in a non-teaching week where no one would be there, where they could, in an underhand way, confer this degree and curry favour with the most reactionary forces in Australian politics. It's fantastic that we're not allowing them that to happen, and I think we need to decide how long and how vocally we want to stay here once the ceremony actually gets underway. Staff, 180 staff, more than 180 staff, members of the arts faculty mainly, but from throughout the university, have called on our colleagues to boycott the ceremony. That's why we're not here. That's why people like Chris, who was at the previous ceremony, are no longer going in to lend their name and authority to the endorsement of a war criminal. So we call on any staff members, we call on all staff members to leave who are considering participating in the graduation ceremony to leave now and not to endorse a racist warmonger. Now let's hear from George. Thanks, George.
Hi there, my name's George. I did a PhD from the University of Sydney. What I want to talk about today is how disappointing it is to have the university dishonour the work of so many staff, academics and students at the university who do not support the Liberal agenda. By conferring this honorary doctorate, it confers the authority of the university in an academic sense onto John Howard. It really disappoints me that the university, at the same time as it releases a strategic plan looking at...
Okay, John Howard, we've got news that John Howard is disowning his. I think we should go and give him the welcome of dishonour that he deserves.
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear!
Howard is not welcome here!
Howard is a war criminal!
Howard is a war criminal!
Howard is a war criminal!
standing up to the things that management tries to do here. Linda did not hesitate when I asked her to help me organise this protest. She didn't hesitate to put her name and to co-author op-ed article justifying what we're doing today in the Sydney Morning Herald. She has always been on the front lines of struggle on this campus, whether it's on the pickets at strikes, facing off against Michael Spence on the bargaining team, trying to stop staff conditions being stripped, or standing up for the rights of Indigenous people. So it's no surprise that she's here today. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Can we make sure people are filming this, please? There's a police officer assaulting my colleague here. Let's welcome Linda Connor.
Oh, hi everybody. Thanks very much for coming today. And look, I'm not a very, haven't got a loud voice and I'm not a great public speaker, but there are a couple of things I want to say. First of all, I'm of course very disappointed and saddened at the police presence and behaviour today. Shame! But I just also want to say how disappointed and saddened I am about the actions of the University Senate, the governing body, the board of the university, in approving the award of this honorary degree to John Howard. The governing body of this university is meant to uphold the core values of the institution, and yet here we've seen them approve the university's highest honorary award to this disreputable and unethical politician who prevailed like a black cloud over Australian politics for so many years. And I guess, you know, what worries me is that the university and the University Senate has just approved a new strategic plan for the university, a 5-year strategic plan. And in it, the core values of the university are trumpeted as inclusivity, diversity, cultural competence, inculcating students with the desire to do good in the world. And it's said by both the Vice-Chancellor and also the Chancellor that these are extraordinary strengths of this university. And yet we see this disreputable politician with a shameful history as leader of the government being given the honorary degree. And I guess when you just go through some of the things that he's done against the values that this university now upholds in its strategic plan and that we're meant to be upholding in our teaching to students, it's really, really shocking. I mean, if you think about inclusivity and then you think about what he did with the marriage law, you know, changing the terms of the marriage law without consultation to man and woman. When you think about what he's done with the Northern Territory intervention, where does that leave inclusivity, cultural competence and diversity? You know, there's so many things that he's done. The no apology to the stolen generation. And also obstructing the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And yet here we are, we've got a DVC for Indigenous Studies and Indigenous Affairs in this university. Why didn't that person speak up and say we can't have John Howard getting an honorary degree? I just feel there's too many people in this university who have not spoken up against what is really a travesty of the university's values. Not just the values that we all hold as academics, but also the values that the university itself says it holds and are now published in quite a lot of detail in the strategic plan, which is available for anybody to see on the website. So my feeling, I mean, apart from the anger, is really how sad I am that this university has come to this and just selling off its own values for some, small measure of political advantage in giving this person an honorary degree. I mean, it's really quite hard for any rational person to understand. So I'm really pleased we've had such a good showing here, and hopefully they've heard the message inside. Thank you very much.
Let him go! Let him go! words by some police officer earlier, like, you know, these are just art students that don't have any future, you know, all the kind of justifications that you tell yourself to make you feel okay about what you're doing so you don't think too critically about your role. You know, there's a variety of people here. You've got academics, people from different political parties, students, whatever, but you keep telling these lies to make you feel that it's okay, because I think deep down you kind of know what kind of role you have, like standing out here crossing your arms protecting John Howard, who's, you know, quite patiently committed these crimes. We have quite a lot of evidence to show that. You know, you could go and do the research, you can look it up, but we really can see the kind of pain and suffering that he's caused in this country and overseas. And you know, you really need to think about the role you have into protecting that and supporting that, and just think about, you know, where you might draw the line. You know, where would you draw the line in protecting a political figure who has committed crimes? Would you continue to do that? Like, you know, this situation is going to get worse. We're going to get more fascistic people in government. Will you continue to do your job? And I think we need people to come on our side and to stand up against elite political figures who are breaking the law and committing crimes and hurting people. So please think about it and come on our side and think about, you know, yeah, supporting the right thing. That's all. Thank
you. And they're representing all what is against freedom of speech, wealth distribution to the middle class. We do not need to demonise the working poor. We do not need to demonise everyday average citizens in a supposed democracy. That's all I'm here to say. We've got a right to protest, and we do not need to be demonised because we've got a voice. We are here for the citizens of the free world.
Thank you very much. Well, it's clear that a historic page has been turned today at the University of Sydney. At the ceremony that's just occurred, the university management has expressly gone against the unambiguously expressed desires of its staff to endorse and to glorify and to honour a man who, when he was Prime Minister of this country, participated in an unjustified war, exacerbated racial tensions, lied to the public, refused to apologise to Indigenous people, discriminated against same-sex couples in a way that really has led us to the divisive Australia we see today. And those of us outside here are here to say that we congratulate every graduate from today's ceremony. We congratulate every graduate from today's ceremony, but we categorically condemn the glorification of war and racism that the conferral of an honorary doctorate on John Howard implies. Our placards here say, "We remember Iraq. We remember the stolen generation. We remember the Northern Territory intervention." And we are disgusted. We are disgusted by the fact that the university has chosen to taint and sully these students' hard-earned degrees by conferring them at the same ceremony that they give an honorary doctorate to a war criminal and a racist. John Howard is not welcome on campus. It is shameful. It goes against everything the university should stand for, that he has been honoured in this way. We are not calling shame on the members of the public coming out at the graduation. We are calling shame on John Howard, on the university administration. Howard is a war criminal. He is a racist. He plunged this country into sectarian, into violence and racial intolerance. War criminal John Howard. War criminal John Howard. John Howard. War criminal John Howard. John Howard. John Howard. John Howard. John Howard. Yet again, let's just make it very clear, we have no quarrel with the ladies and gentlemen, with the families coming out of this graduation. We have no quarrel with you at all. We are here to show respect to those members of your family whose graduation ceremony has been tainted by the presence of a war criminal and a racist. We congratulate every graduate who has graduated today.
Mangy cur! Come and face the people!
John Howard!
War criminal!
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 John Howard! War criminal! John Howard!
War criminal!
John Howard!
War criminal!
John Howard! War criminal! Brendan Nelson! War criminal! Brendan Nelson!
War criminal! Brendan Nelson! Brendan Nelson is leaving the building. Brendan Nelson, the former health minister, the education minister, is that right? Introduced neoliberalism into Australian higher education and health, exacerbated it, shame on him. He is not welcome on this campus.
Liberals are not welcome here!
Racist, sexist, anti-queer!
Liberals are not welcome here!
Racist, sexist, anti-queer!
Liberals are not welcome here!